It empowers police to intercept mail, social media platforms, to turn over a list of their subscribers and where their subscribers live. It will become illegal for Canadians to donate $10,000 cash.
Disrupt America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. So just within days of Parliament having its first session, House of Commons returning, a new bill is formed. So this bill C2, which is the Strong Borders Act, which seems like a, an important decision that we need to secure our borders. But note this, Bill C2, the Strong Borders Act, should be named the Strong Surveillance Act, according to this guy, John Carpe, who is from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. So this guy is going to explain how, when you read between the lines of the Strong Borders Act, there is a lot of deep, dark, suppressed language that is actually going to be more oppressive to Canadians than newcomers coming into Canada. Listen to this.
Bill C2, the Strong Borders Act, should be named the Strong Surveillance Act. It empowers police to intercept mail and gives new powers to Canada Post to open mail, thereby repudiating a 157-year-old Canadian tradition dating back to Confederation of respecting the privacy of Canadians when they mail a letter or parcel.
So one of the provisions in this Strong Borders Bill is they're allowing law enforcement to read and open your mail, a breach of privacy, without a warrant. And they haven't done this in 157 years, since Confederation. Now that a central banker is in control of things, anything goes. This is definitely going to help protect the border by opening up your letters, by opening up your mail, by reading your credit card statements, your cable bill. Maybe you get People Magazine or Hello Canada. You want them to read that? How's that helping the border? How's that helping secure the amount of mass migration that you've already flooded this country with? There's more.
Police are going to get new powers to demand that providers of electronic services, and that could be social media platforms, to turn over a list of their subscribers and where their subscribers live.
So they want electronic devices to be monitored, and they want social media platforms or internet service providers to give up personal information on each user and hand that over to law enforcement and the government so that they can trace down not only people that post things or create content, but also the followers and subscribers. This sounds like right out of George Orwell. This sounds right out of some sinister Soviet plot. This sounds like something China would be capable of. But guess what? China's not even doing this. It's us. We're worse than China. That is just absolutely crazy. That means if God forbid something happens to me and they start scrambling around my information online, they're going to take every single person that subscribes to Kitz Corner or anyone that subscribes to my X account or any social media platform and take their data too. Without a warrant. Without any sort of criminal conviction. For their own whim. And they're calling this to help with the border. But there's more.
This is terrifying, tyrannical, totalitarian legislation. I want to focus in particularly on the criminalization of the use of cash. If Bill C2 passes in its current form, it will become illegal for Canadians to donate $10,000 cash to a charity or to make purchases of $10,000 or more using cash.
It will become illegal to have any cash transactions of $10,000 or more. And I know people think that that's very, very seldom that Canadians are going to have a cash transaction of $10,000 or more. But think about that. Think about that. Because that piece of legislation, if that's out in play, they can then turn down the legal amount. And they can further push more people from avoiding cash transactions because it will be illegal and push towards things like, I don't know, a digital currency. You know, a CBDC, which is something that a central banker like Mark Carney, derived from the WEF, would propose to Canadians. But we can't be direct and honest and say we're going to turn everything digital. We got to force people. We got to do changes. Like Larry Fink at BlackRock would say, we got to force behavioral changes on people. How do we do that? We make it illegal to do cash transactions, but we start at a higher rate. And then we just slowly turn down that number. So, this is already sinister. This is already sinister. And notice has he not said anything about anything with the border. Even though it's called the Strong Borders Act. Not a single word of this mentions about the border. Mentions about mass migration. Mentions about fentanyl. And some people say, well, you know, if we cut back on the cash transactions and monitor social media accounts, then it's going to stop the criminals. Potentially. But that means that every Canadian is giving up that right of privacy. That means they have full control of every single individual, whether you're a criminal or not. It's like the Patriot Act. Remember they said they're only going after the terrorists? And look what happened. So let's hear the rest.
Now, of course, one could rightly point out that there's not too many Canadians that are using cash in the amounts of $10,000 to donate to charities or to make purchases. But once this is in the criminal code, it's very, very easy for government to say, well, we're going to change the 10,000 limit to 5,000. We're going to change the 5,000 limit to 1,000. And before you know it, it'll be illegal to use more than $100 worth of cash. Cash protects our privacy and our autonomy, protects us from surveillance by government and surveillance by banks, credit card companies, and other institutions. Cash is one of the pillars of the free society. We need to fight to defend it. Contact your member of parliament and urge him or her to oppose Bill C2.
And just stating that, they tried this before with COVID. I remember walking in, I think it was maybe a Tim Hortons or something. And during the pandemic, they were trying to ease away from using cash because they deemed cash to be contaminated with COVID. And they were pushing more and more people towards digital transactions like a debit card or a credit card where you're traced by the bank. You're monitored by whatever partnership you have. You're monitored by the government of Canada. And we saw during the Freedom Convoy how dangerous that could be because the government can seize control of your bank account and turn it off like a light switch at any point in turn. Even if you've done nothing wrong, even if you have no criminal conviction, you have no reason why they are doing this. They have full control over you. They have full control over you. This is crazy. This is crazy. And they're driving this up. They're masquerading this. They're putting a front to pretend that this is protecting the border. So, here's some breakdown details of this. Here's National Post. If Bill 2 passes as written, it would become illegal for any business, profession, or charity to accept cash payments of more than $10,000. Again, sounds like a lot of money. Sounds like a lot of money. I don't think people would have $10,000 in cash to give to a charity. But as he stated there, Once that legislation's in play, they can start turning down that dial and lower that number. It could be $5,000, could be $100, could be $50, until slowly we start transitioning more and more people away from cash, which gives you freedom, away from these institutions and towards a central bank currency, which is the ultimate goal of someone like Mark Carney. This is what would happen as if this would pass as it's written. Here's John Carpe. Cash is one of the last pillars of free society. That's what he just stated there. So in the Government of Canada website, this is directly from it, screenshots of this. Scope of warrant. The warrant authorizes the peace officer or public officer or a person acting under their direction to install, activate, use, maintain, monitor, and remove the tracking device, including covertly. The warrant also authorizes a person acting under the direction of peace officer or public officer to obtain the tracking data that is authorized to be obtained under the warrant. But that's not the creepy part. Look under here. Under definition of tracking device. In this section, tracking device means a device including a computer program as defined in subsection 342.1 that may be used to obtain or record tracking data or to transmit it by means of telecommunications. So basically what they're saying is the Government of Canada could give themselves the right to seize your computer, your laptop, your iPhone, your Android phone, your tablet, your smart TV, anything that has tracking capabilities, which more and more devices, more and more gadgets have tracking devices on them. They could seize control of that, take that data, and use it for their own whims against you. Again, this sounds directly out of Orwell. Orwell. Why did I say Orwell? And if you haven't read George Orwell, you're probably going to want to pick up a book at some point, because this is happening, folks. Here's something else to add to this. I'm not going to read all of it, but just the highlighted part here. In the section 6, allow a justice or judge to authorize a peace officer or public officer to make a request to a foreign entity that provides telecommunication services to the public to produce transmission data or subscriber information that is in its possession or control. So this is for platforms like X, for YouTube, for Facebook, for any social media platform, because they're U.S. companies, they're technically a foreign entity. They're saying that they could seize your social media account because you're involved with a foreign entity. This is the Canadian government doing this on behalf of you and protecting the border. This is what they're proposing. That we do mass surveillance on you, we track your data, we seize your properties, seize control of your cash, how much you spend. All in the names of protecting the border. So, the Liberals introduced Bill C-2, Strong Borders Act. How is monitoring my mail and when I post online without a warrant going to help secure our borders? This is Bill C-63 2.0. That's exactly it. They incorporated a border bill, which no doubt was probably very vague because we know that mass migration is something to capitalize off of, thanks to the Century Initiative, thanks to NGOs, and Mark Carney personally. They're not going to actually reduce immigration. They're not actually going to cap anything. They're not going to do anything for the border. So they need fillers. They need fillers to beef up this bill. And what are they going to do? They're going to take something from 63, which is the Online Harms Act, which is a censorship bill, and put that in the border bill. And make it look like we're protecting the borders when really we want to tyrannically control individuals online, when we want to provoke censorship, and we're going to throw that into the border bill to trick people. So here, this is from City News. This is the Minister of Public Safety, who, frankly, after watching him in the House of Commons, I don't feel safe around him whatsoever. I couldn't even give directions for him because of just how much of a schmuck this guy is. So here's City News, actually exposing a bit of this detail and finding these little shenanigans inside this bill proposed as a border protection bill, but yet has provisions that are coming from other bills, like the Online Arms Act.
With this new legislation, we'll ensure Canada has the right tools to keep our borders secure, combat transnational organized crime and fentanyl, and disrupt illicit financing.
The new public safety minister tables his first major legislation, Bill C-2, aimed at border security but with far-reaching implications. If passed, C-2 gives CBSA officers more powers to search export warehouses, make it easier for law enforcement to pass sex offender information to American authorities, and restrict large cash transactions, which the government believes is chiefly used for international crime.
This is about delivering a win for Canada and ensuring that our borders are safer, our communities are safer. And of course, we're responding to some of the concerns that have been posed by the White House.
There's also an overhaul of the refugee and asylum process, dropping inactive cases from the system, making deportations immediate, and allowing the government to cancel immigration documents immediately, and an expansion of police.
So they're saying they want to deport people out of Canada after we just brought in 817,000 more people in a matter of months. Now they want to mass deport people. How do you think that's going to go? How do you think that's going to go? See what's happening in America? Tell me how that's going. Tell me how that's going. And think it's going to do well here in Canada. It's not going to stop the problem. It's not going to stop the problem. It's just going to give law enforcement more abilities to roam around and crack down on people. It's not actually going to stop the problem of mass migration, considering mass migration, a lot of it comes from corrupted NGOs, from initiatives like Century Initiative. They're not going to combat them, but they're going to try to mass deport people. See how that goes.
And border officer powers. Electronic service providers would be required to provide certain information to police without a warrant. And the government says to fight fentanyl trafficking, C2 would remove restrictions on police opening mail.
In a free and democratic society, we are not supposed to be under government observation. And if there is going to be a search of something private, police should have to show a reasonable cause to a judge. I'm not saying that you should never be able to search if you have appropriate court orders, but I really dislike the idea of leaving this in the hands of individual police officers.
The BC Civil Liberties Association, in a statement to City News, says C2 is a sprawling omnibus bill which would increase the powers of law enforcement agencies that have no civilian oversight, allow police to open Canadians' mail, and subject electronic service providers to secret orders about sharing information with the state.
Sadly, this is something that's been going on for years. You've had little beta tests here and there. You know, like when they locked down the Freedom Convoy's bank accounts. That was a little test there. That was a little experiment as part of this bill. As part of this onslaught, Orwellian nightmare. That is total government control. That the corrupted Liberal Party, along with corrupted law enforcement, along with this cabal of oligarchs that want to seize control, that want to limit your ability as a civilian and turn you into a slave, now grant themselves more control. This has been going on for years. What do you think the ArriveCam app was about? Do you really think they cared about the spreading of COVID? Do you really think they cared about your best interest? Do you really think that a digital ID is making your life convenient or making their lives convenient to surveil on you. Then they have information on you. And when they have information on you, they have full control over you. They can blackmail you. They can manipulate you. They can decide if you have a bank account or not. They can decide what food you can eat. And you think this is something coming out of a sci-fi movie, but this is happening. This is happening.
Adding that the bill is so broad it could affect people even if they never cross the border. However, Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasanguri, a former human rights attorney, says he has no concerns.
I fundamentally believe that we have...
He has no concerns. A former human rights lawyer. Are all former human rights lawyers just this shitty? We saw the one that was threatening Greta Thunberg. And now you get this jackass that said there's no problem. There's no problem opening people's mail. There's no problem spying down on people's social media posts. There's no problem arresting someone and then seizing their smart devices because they did wrong thing. There's nothing wrong with this. Nothing wrong with this. Because this guy is in government. He has a cushy job. He got in just in time to get a pay raise. As you know, the country is at, 7% unemployment? And that number is climbing. Youth unemployment is the highest it's ever been. But this guy is congratulating himself and patting himself on the back for doing Orwellian, nightmarish, censorious surveillance on you.
Strike the balance that while expanding powers in certain instances does have the safeguards and the protections in place to protect individual freedoms and rights.
In Ottawa, Shally Lee, City News.
Jeez. That is just absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Now, I know there's some people out there that are going to take this and take what I said here, and they're going to be like, well, we still got to deal with immigration and all these illegals coming in and, taking the jobs and doing that, blah, blah, blah. That is an issue. That is an issue. The mass migration, yes, is a problem. But turning ourselves into this technocratic feudalist state where we're going to lose our authorities, we're going to lose our rights and freedoms, our civilian rights and freedoms, to give that to the state is exactly what is designed and why they brought this chaos upon us. They're hoping that people beg for authoritarian measures like this. They're hoping for that. That's why they're bringing in more migrants than there are job opportunities. Why? Because they want to bring chaos into Canada. Because chaos is what the establishment thrives on. They thrive on the crazy sanity of civil unrest. When people are angry at each other, when people are too distracted, fighting amongst each other, left versus right, black versus white, everything upside down craziness. This is what fuels law enforcement. This is what fuels aristocratic governments like this, where they seize control, when they take away your privacy, and they have full force authority over you. But to add to this, as Table Salt points out, this is a Canadian international student, says on camera that she paid $20,000 for a Canadian job. It's so commonplace that people don't even know it's illegal. So what I've been saying, and why I want to show this, is I don't blame the immigrants. I don't ever blame the immigrants for the problem that we're in right now. The immigrants are being exploited the same way we're being exploited. We're all part of the same exploitation. We're all part of the same boat. And it is the government It is the NGOs. It is the corporations. It's our lax laws, our legislation assembly that are at fault of this. Because they are trafficking these people to use for slave labor. And that's not me stating that. That's what the UN stated that. They did reports on Canada and their mass migration and reported that Canada is involved in modern day slavery. They're human trafficking people through mass migration so that companies can exploit them for cheap labor and for votes. So I don't blame the immigrants because of scenarios like this. This woman who's on camera here, you're about to see, paid a company $20,000 to get a job here in Canada. And I'm sure this woman here thought she was, trying to survive, trying to be on her own and seek better life than where she was before. And because the corporations exploited her, being a foreigner, being a non-citizen, and not having the individual rights as a citizen, they're doing illegal practices like this on the regular. And we've seen this time and time again where they don't put an end to this. And that's why I said, if you're going to deport people, good luck with that. Because it's not going to stop this problem. It's not going to stop these practices. So here's what this young woman had to say.
We are paying the employer like so much money to get only the job letter, and also they are not giving us full hours. Like I am working 91 hours, like 2 weeks, but he is giving me 85 hours. That's not fair. I can't help my family.
How much money did you invest?
Like I paid around $30,000 my fees for 2 years.
And then you have to stay as well.
Yeah, of course I have to stay because I paid money to these colleges. And even if I'm trying to do health job, they require the experience. So where I will get my experience if you are not giving me the job? And also they require the good references. Who will help us? I studied at Fleming College, Peterborough, Ontario. I did studies in mental health and addiction worker. I completed my 2 years diploma in 2023. But if I'm trying my job, they are requiring the experience. But from where I'll get experience if you will not give me a job? And they are promoting only healthcare.
But that is a healthcare.
Yeah, that's a healthcare. If I'm trying to find a job, they only require the good references, and they are doing discrimination. They are only they are promoting white community people. We pay so much money to them that they are not helping us.
So again, we're all part of the scam. We're all part of the scam. They're dangling a carrot in front of temporary foreign workers, promising them jobs, promising them, hotel rooms so they could stay in Canada. Oh, you're going to be part of the community. You're going to be helping us so much. We're going to give you sustainability. You're going to have a new life here in Canada. And in order to do so, we're going to kick out the already Canadian workforce and undermine them, throw them under the bus, and then exploit you for cheap labor until we throw you under the bus. And that's when AI will come in and just replace everybody. But we're gonna scam you. This woman paid $20,000 for a job letter, thinking that she was a student. She was a healthcare student, and she paid $20,000 for a job letter, thinking that she was going to get into the workforce here in Canada, and she got scammed. And what you're seeing now is a lot more migrants who got this false promise being exploited in this system that definitely needs to be reformed, which is the whole cause of this problem. They're now leaving. Migrants are leaving Canada. Just as much as ordinary Canadians are considering leaving Canada. Because they're all part of the systematic oppression done by the government. We're all part of the same boat. That's why I don't, yell at immigrants. That's why I'm not on TV cheering on the ICE raids. Oh, congratulations. We kicked out people at a Walmart. Alpha male. I'm not one of those people. Because these are individuals that are just looking to get by. They're trying to survive. And they got duped the same way anybody else gets duped. And if you really want to fix the system, you really want to deal with immigration, you deal with the loopholes like this. You deal with the scam artists like this. The fact that she paid $20,000 to some organization to falsify a document for her, thinking that she was legally in the right to get a work visa, work for a bit after being a graduate. And she got caught up in this mess, and now that's why she's protesting. Because she doesn't know where to go now. And the only two options is you either try to apply for citizenship, which is a huge laundry list of people, or you get out. So let's see the rest of this, actually.
Like, I'm working at Papa John's as food service supervisor, but I'm paying a lot of money to my employer only to get my job back. Like before, last month, I applied my job letter as I completed my 1-year experience, but that letter is rejected. And again on 20th March, where the job letter was again reopened, at the same day I applied, but now there is no response. They are saying the 25% quota is already full. That's not our mistake. The government should tell us before 2 or 3 months before that we are thinking to do that, so that we can think something else. But now there is no job opportunities and no PR pathway.
How much money did you pay your employer?
Like around 20,000 plus. Like we are only for the job let, and we are working for them, and we are working more than 90 hours, but the employer is only paying me 85 hours. I can't say him anything because I am like, what to do?
So, like I said, I have sympathy for people that got caught up in this mess. Of course, there are people that come into Canada and exploit the system, and, I'm sure there's individuals like that out there, but I would say a vast majority of people seeking new life, especially if you're in a sanctioned country or a war-torn country that we got ourselves involved into for no reason, thinking that Canada was going to be some sort of refuge, and now here you are, part of the exploitation program, the human trafficking circle known as Justin Trudeau's immigration. I feel sad. I feel sad for these people. I feel sad for her. I feel sad for anyone caught up in this charade. I feel as sad as the people that lose their jobs to people like her. And not because immigrants stole your jobs, but because corporations decide to throw you under the bus to get cheap labor. And that came around during COVID when they told you to lock everything down. So it was all a scam from the get-go. It was all a scam from the get-go. And here, this guy, Marty up north, unacceptable fact checker, that's a long handle there, says the government just wants to hand out Canadian citizenships left, right, and center. Yesterday's Liberals introduced Bill C-3, an act to amend the Citizenship Act. They want to automatically give Canadian citizenship to any person who would be a citizen today if not for the first generation limit or certain outdated provisions of previous citizenship legislation. Established a new framework for citizenship by dissent going forward that would allow for access to citizenship beyond the first generation based on a Canadian parent's substantial connection to Canada demonstrated by at least 1,095 cumulative days, or 3 years, of physical presence in Canada prior to their child's birth or adoption. In other words, the proposed law will change how Canadian citizenship is passed down to children born outside of Canada. Right now, if a Canadian parent was born abroad, they can't automatically pass citizenship to their kids born abroad due to a rule called the first generation limit. Bill C3 would remove this limit, allowing these parents to pass citizenship to their children if they live in Canada for at least 3 years before the child's birth. So, again, I don't put the blame on the migrants. I put the blame on the legislators. I put the blame at the people who have financial control and power to really reform things. And instead of actually dealing with mass migration and fentanyl and organized crime and making Canada safer, they want to exploit it even further so that more and more Canadians beg for authoritarian measures like you just saw there. They're hoping that people get fear-mongered into the trap of this neoliberal, established Orwellian nightmare, this tyrannical force where it's going to open your mail, suppress your social media presence. They're going to tap into your information and data collection, and they're going to completely take control over you in the disguise of protecting the border. It's all a giant scam from the get-go, because the original bill was just barely nothing, but then they beefed it up by incorporating the worst of other bills, hoping that politicians and people among Canada are not going to read into things. They're hoping that you didn't read on this bill or even looked into this bill to find out what was really inside. But once you really find out what's inside these bills, oh my God, is it awful.